Everybody, but good morning and good evening. We're really glad that you could join us today as we launch the Play to Learn Resource Hub, as well as share a little bit about what we've done over the course of the project with other ECD practitioners. I'd invite you all to help kick us off by telling us a little bit about the kinds of tools or resources that you use most in your job each day. We're going to try to highlight tools and resources we have to share that you would be most likely to use. And so you should see like a Zoom poll come up and it says, what tools and resources do you use or are you interested in seeing? And we'll try to highlight those as we go along. Please also feel free to put your name or location in the chat as well if you'd feel comfortable doing that so we can know our audience. I'm Anjali Shivshankar. I'm the Senior Director of Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning for the Play to Learn project, and I'm so happy to be here to moderate this panel as a part of my role to support learning and sharing across our partners and project. The Play to Learn project is a humanitarian program from Sesame Workshop, BRAC, International Rescue Committee, and NYU Global TIES for Children that harnesses the power of play to deliver critical early learning to children and caregivers affected by conflicts and crises. To date, we've served over 2.5 million people, most of whom are children. And in the chat, you'll see a link to our latest annual report if you'd like to learn a bit more about the project. One of our project's commitments was to create ECD program models that had the potential for scale, replication, or adaptation. As we were debating how best we could do this, we worked with a firm called CE International, who I think a few of their staff are here today with us, to review all of the other ECD guidance and resources available to try and avoid duplication. And we decided that two contributions we could make were first to share the actual materials that we used in implementation. This means monitoring tools, training resources, curriculum, activity guides, worksheets, print content, and media that we used working with young children and families. And second, to share the perspectives from the many staff who worked in these programs across multiple countries. So there should be another link in the chat to take you to the main Resource Hub landing page. And in this webinar, we're going to look at two of the sections in more detail together, the program catalog and the resource collections. So let's take a look at the poll. Maria, I actually can't see the answer, so I wonder if you're able to.
Let me first end the poll.
Give everyone a chance to, yeah.
And I'm also making you co-host in case you're able to see them now.
I can see I can't see the actual answers.
Oh, apologies for that. I'm not sure what happened. I make you co-host so you are able to see them.
That's okay. Well, if we can't see them, we can put it, the historical chat. Yes. So I'll ask my INEE colleague Shreya if you can put the Resource Hub link and the annual report link in the chat again so that people who have joined a little bit late can also have it, and we'll keep adding as we go along. Great. Thank you so much. So I'll move to the next slide and we'll just go over our agenda for today. We'll start off hearing from colleagues who designed, managed, and implemented a few of the programs that Play to Learn delivered. We've served children and their caregivers with 13 program models that all aim to support the holistic development and well-being of young children using play. The COVID pandemic began in the early years of our grant, and it all prompted us to design remote and hybrid variations of a lot of these programs as well. Then we're going to hear how partners across countries use play to achieve a wide range of goals, in addition to supporting children's growth and development. And then we're going to end with a demonstration and an orientation to the Resource Hub itself so that you can find the resources later. Though we'll have a consolidated Q&A at the end, you can go ahead and put questions in the chat as we go. We'll be monitoring it, and you'll get links along the way to each of the pages that we're looking at. We know that each context in each country is different and that children and families affected by conflicts and crises have different needs and different preferences. We're hoping that in this webinar that you'll find something that you can learn from, adapt, or use yourself. So we're going to go ahead and begin. First, we're going to welcome two colleagues from the IRC, Leila Hussein, who managed programs in the Middle East, and Asan Mahmoud, who managed programs in Cox's Bazar. So Leila, if you're able to turn on your camera, I'll invite you to do that, and I'll come back on camera when it's time to move to the next person.
Of course. Hello, I am Leila Hussein, the Regional Technical Early Childhood Advisor of Ahlan Simsim. As you maybe know, Ahlan Simsam has many programs and models, and today I will present a glimpse of one of the Ahlan Simsam programs, which called Be Ready, Be Strong program, the Early Childhood Development Program and Emergency. Next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide? Yes, thank you. In 2023, an earthquake devastated multiple areas in Syria and Turkey, leaving families homeless and surrounded by devastation. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, children and caregivers experienced different strong feelings such as sadness, loneliness. They express these emotions through sleep difficulties, eating disorders, crying, silence, and others. The emotions that they experience and the loss of normalcy are wounds that run deep, leaving scars and that may never fully heal. So without intervention, these young minds may be faced by developmental delays and impact on their learning and behaviors they carry with them into their future. Next slide, please. So in response to the needs, Ahlan Simsam Be Ready, Be Strong, this program was developed to support young children and their families by providing them with a set of activities, including psychosocial support and social emotional learning, to support their resilience through age-appropriate, inclusive, and play-based activities. Next slide. Okay. The first intervention, as you can see on the screen, is implemented in centers or schools or any space where there is safety and security for children and caregivers to access and remain safe during the session. In next slide, we can see the other intervention, which is at home. When when face-to-face services are not possible, so we send the family learning package at home. In the next slide, there is a quick sample of an activity designed for children to learn about the feeling of grief and ways to deal with loss. You can see Mazuza, the baby goat, our Muppet. She had a plant, but despite all the care, it died. The facilitator in this activity asked the children about Mazuza's feeling and if it is normal for her to feel sad and why. The children imitate Mazuza's facial expressions and the techniques that she can do to release the stress. Children learn that she can do deep breathing, drawing, she can move, she can count to 5, or also she can ask for help. So here Mazuza decided to write a letter to the plant and put it in the soil, but she realized suddenly that she can't write yet, but she can draw her happy memories with the plant. So she placed the drawing in the soil in which her plant was and take care of the seeds while they grow into a plant, and Mazuza's plant will be happy with that. In this worksheet, children draw Mazuza's happy memories with the worksheet as they imagine it. I hope you like that example. In the other slide, we can see another sample of activities for caregivers where they learn that even through a traumatic event, when it is over, some children continue to show the same reaction they did when difficult circumstances first occurred. For example, they may continue to feel afraid when they hear sirens or hear ambulances or even construction work. Then the caregiver can watch a Muppet video which help them to find way to talk to children about this event. Now we can show the video with the sound, please.
Apologies, Leila. The video is not loading at the moment, so if it's okay, we will move to the next slide.
I can share from my screen, if possible.
Leila, you also have about 1 minute, so we
Okay,
can also
okay.
put the link in the chat as well.
Okay, great. Okay, so when you see the video, you will find a very good example for children and caregivers to learn about how to deal with that. And the Be Strong, the Play to Learn, hub. And I think in the chat, you can find the link. You can go to the programs catalog, find the Be Ready, Be Strong, explore the goals. You can find who we worked with. Can we go to the web page? Yes or no? Also, you can find feedback about the program there. You can find the reach figures, the description of the content and delivery methods. You can find the resources, the training agenda, even the PPT you can use. Also, there is a link to the application where the facilitators can download the whole thing and use it while or during the implementation. Also, you can find the monitoring and evaluation methods and the tools we use for that program. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Leila. And there's a few questions in the chat for you that do ask a little bit more about the engagement of children and what was the intensity and frequency, which Leila says is on the webpage. But if you'd like to go into the Q&A, you can respond to a few of the specific questions. And for Suzanne, actually, we're going to talk about specifically disability inclusion a little bit later in the panel, so we'll definitely save your question for then. So next, I'd love to welcome Ahsan Mahmood, who is our colleague at IRC in Bangladesh, to talk about the program Zindagi Goran.
Hello, everyone. This is Ahsan Mahmood, the education coordinator for IRC Bangladesh, and good evening from Bangladesh to everyone. So as Anjali mentioned that there are total 13 model work. This consortium worked for the last 5 years, and Zindagi Goran is one of the model which IRC Bangladesh has introduced and worked on in Cox's Bazar, particularly for Rohingya response and the host community population. So, so let me give you a bit of update on that or background of this model. So Zindagi Goran, which is actually a Rohingya term called means paving the future, is an integrated ECD approach to reach Rohingya and host community families in Cox's Bazar through technology innovation and blended modalities, particularly targeting to the caregiver who receives a message about health, nutrition, play, and early childhood development through interactive voice response, calls, text messages, quiz questions, remote follow, as well as home visits. So this model actually developed considering the impact of COVID restriction when the model actually initially moved to the remote model, and gradually based on the caregiver's need and request, client's need and request, it included the home visit. So, so the project actually aimed to improve caregivers' nurture, nutritional status and mental health, knowledge of early childhood health, nutrition, safety, and caregiving, and actually practice of responsive caregiving and early learning. And this model also focused on bringing a whole family approach for ECD at household level, not only targeting mothers and children, particularly targeting husband, father-in-law, mother-in-law, and other caregivers who formed an ecosystem for the overall achieving the overall goal and target. So through this model, IRC Bangladesh has raised a total of 58 people, including young children and caregivers. So in the right side, you can see that one mother explained that I regularly listen to the IRV calls and follow the IRV messages. Now my baby is 3 months old, and I have learned from IVR calls how to behave with my child at what age, what kind of food to feed them, what is the benefit of taking to my child, etc. So there is so many like response like that where caregivers and parents actually showed that they have benefited with the knowledge and practices through this model. So this model actually followed multiple phases. And as you can see that there was a pilot phase in 2020, then we followed a prototype phase based on the learning from pilot phase to improve the model. And then we went for an implementation phase. And finally, we completed the impact evaluation phase that ended in 2023. And now, based on the impact evaluation result and other things, we are planning for the impact at a scale or a scale up for this model. So there are some key learnings. We found that age-specific message and culturally relevant content, enhanced localization. I'm not going to read everything, but I'm just picking some of the key points. So the safe, relevant, and accessible program lets families to feel empowered to influence and shape program. Dedicated phone line improves outreach and addresses specific needs effectively. When we say dedicated phone line, it means that ownership of mobile phone by mothers on that aspects. So funding helps create a supportive environment for family involvement and child development. So this is some of the key learnings we have from this model. So, So the key findings from the randomized control trial and cost-effective analysis with the impact evaluation phase, and it shows that the Zindagi Karan model has significant impact on children compared to the control group. And in terms of cost effectiveness, only remote intervention needs below $100 to support a single household, and each household actually includes 3 family members and 2 children, which is consist of 5 members. So this is So you can see the resource space where the Zindagi Karan model is actually featured, and a lot more information and other pieces are there, which can help you to understand and like meet your queries and some of the resources as well. So thanks for listening my presentation. Over to you, Anjali.
Thank you so much, Asan. And I would really encourage people, someone had a question about phone-based modalities, and the Zindagi Karan program did use an IVR system on brick phones. And there's a little bit more information about the extensive work that IRC did to pilot and prototype a functional IVR system in Cox's Bazar on the webpage itself. And we can put, the link is in the chat. So next, I'd like to welcome my colleague Junaid Alam from BRAC, and he'll talk a little bit about the humanitarian play labs in Cox's Bazar. Junaid, off to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anjali, and thanks for everyone. Thanks to everyone for joining. In my presentation today, I'll share BRAC's experience in implementing the humanitarian play lab model in the Rohingya camps in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. In August 2017, over 700 displaced Rohingya refugees arrived Cox's Bazar, fleeing the violence in the state of Rakhine of Myanmar. And most of these individuals were women and children, with around 54% of the population under the age of 18. Cox's Bazar was already hosting a large number of registered and unregistered refugees from Rakhine. They were Rohingya. They were from the Rohingya community, and when this influx brought in such a huge population into Cox's Bazar, the government immediately allocated around 5,000 acres of land and deployed dedicated senior government officials to manage the humanitarian response. And you can see from the picture how cramped these camps are. The children were under a lot of distress when they first arrived, and these cramped settings, the children were all at risk of getting lost and trafficked. And also the unfamiliarity of this new place further brought about the feeling of isolation, and it resulted in loneliness, loss of resilience, and possibly more psychosocial distress. Since the beginning of the influx, despite the challenging circumstances, BRAC sought to create opportunities for play, stimulation, healing within safe and familiar spaces for these children. And while doing so, BRAC also took measures to preserve the cultural elements of the Rohingya community, which really helped to create a familiar environment for the children away from home. The aim was to really foster resilience and nurture children's spontaneity through cultural relevance and contextualized play-based curriculum. So in 2018, BRAC co-created the humanitarian play lab model, and it was really to cater to children aged 3 to 5. And these are ECD spaces where children play to heal and learn. The play-based curriculum of the model promotes learning, healing, and the retention of their cultural identity. The curriculum activities are all built on traditional play, kabbiya, which are traditional rhymes, kissa, which are folk tales, and art, free drawing. Besides these, the space design is also an integral component of the model, which has been created with the support from the Rohingya community, and it reflects the intrinsic elements of the Rohingya culture. You can see some of the decorative elements in the picture, some hanging from the roof and on the wall. And these HPLs, they are not only, the play of, in these HPLs, play is not only a medium for engagement, but also an essential component for cultural relevance for children. So the socio-emotional learning practices have been integrated throughout the daily routine of the HPL, the humanitarian play labs. And the play activities of the model fosters children's ability to socialize, build empathy, and develop emotional regulation. And the unique play activities, you can see the children playing a game which is called the Bangkhela, which is the frog game. So these are unique play from the Rohingya culture, which nurtures team building, coordination, and collaboration. And the SEL practices also extend beyond children and also focuses on mothers, fathers, and other caregivers through home visit sessions. And the ACL components are an integral part of the model because they not only foster socio-emotional learning, but also nurture children's healing and coping mechanisms or abilities. BRAC's co-creation approach with the community is quite a rigorous process, and the approach involves co-designing the curriculum activities, the play materials, the space with the communities to ensure contextualization and cultural relevance of the model. The community engagement spans from design through evaluation, which really fosters a sense of belonging and gives an understanding of the best approaches to positively communicate and work with communities. In the Rohingya culture, it's not very common for women to participate in the workforce. And despite the initial challenges, BRAC was able to engage young women recruited from the community to facilitate the sessions as play leaders in these humanitarian play labs. And They receive rigorous training on various child development domains, including socio-emotional learning, child protection, child observation, and safety. And these play leaders also work with the parents and caregivers, facilitating sessions on caregiver attachment and parent-child interaction during the home visits. So owing to the success of the center-based HPLs, the model was adapted and scaled to include children as well as their mothers and fathers within an earlier age group, which is 0 to 3. So the center-based caters to 3 to 5. And this new adapted model, which includes the mothers and fathers, are home-based for the age group 0 to 3. And this is really to ensure a holistic approach to early childhood developments in the humanitarian setting. So from birth, they get a play-based curriculum up until the age of 5. And through these two models, I mean, BRAC approximately reach around 400,000 children and caregivers.
Junaid, just a time check. You have about 30 seconds left.
Okay, I can't change the slides. I'm having trouble changing the slides. Oh, I'm not going to go through these findings from our research, but if you look closely, you can see the improvements in the child outcomes and their SEL outcomes, as well as their caregivers. And here is just a snapshot of the findings from an impact evaluation that was conducted by New York University TIES, where we see improved relationships of the fathers with their spouse and their children, and also increased responsiveness with the children, better emotional regulation and anger management. Finally, coming to the lessons learned, BRAC has learned that communities and traditional cultural practices play an integral role in the development and healing process of children, especially in humanitarian context. And to build children's resilience and retain their playful spontaneity, it is important to work with different ecological tiers surrounding the children, including parents and caregivers, and also, most importantly, the whole community. And BRAC recognizes that play-based learning and healing needs to be scaled for all early years. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Anjali. We have the resources for you to look at. I'm sure you'll get to know more about the HPLs here. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Junaid. And there's a couple of questions for you in terms of the availability of the training manuals, which, yes, they are online. BRAC was extremely generous in making the entire curriculum, the training guides. If you want to know about the operational details of how they ran these HPLs, BRAC puts all of it on the webpage. But Junaid, I'll let you answer a couple of the questions from the chat if you can just type it in. And now I'd like to welcome Leslie Cuellar and our colleague Mariana Bonet de Vivero from Universidad de los Andes to talk a little bit about our pilot program in Colombia. So Leslie, off to you.
Thank you, Anjali, and hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Cuellar. I am the Senior Education Manager on the Play to Learn project at Sesame Workshop. Before we dive into our next case study, I want to highlight that Play to Learn produced a lot of evidence and guidance on the value of educational media for children and family affected by crisis and conflict. Our findings suggest that educational media can support positive outcomes for children in a range of areas, including social-emotional learning. Additionally, when children and adults watch together, it can also help strengthen their relationship and create deeper bonds. Now we're going to focus on one intervention that has shown just this by integrating our Watch, Play, Learn SEL content into their community-based psychosocial support program for caregivers in Colombia. I'd like to hand it over to Mariana Bonet de Vivero from Universidad de los Andes to provide us with insights into the Watch, Play, Learn integration into their Semillas de Apego program.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Leslie. Here we go. So I'll be talking a little bit more about the integration between the Semillas de Apego program and the Sesame Workshop's Watch, Play, Learn line. The Semillas de Apego program is created from the armed conflict and forced displacement that occurs in Colombia. Many children, both Venezuelan and Colombian children, have been exposed to these adverse settings. And unfortunately, what we know is that these early life adverse experiences can limit a child's capacity to reach his or her full potential, for full development potential. So the Semillas de Apego program rises from this problem, and it is a community and group-based psychosocial program that promotes both caregiver mental health and early childhood development in families that have been affected by conflict, displacement, and forced migration. The program has a 15 weekly in-person session structure where the sessions are carried out in groups of approximately 15 caregivers, and they are led by 2 community facilitators. We work in 3 dimensions: caregiver mental health, child-caregiver relationships, and parenting teams. The program began in 2014, and throughout these 10 years, we have been able to explore and collect the evidence of the impact of the program. If you'd like to learn more about the program, on the Resource Hub, you can actually access the Semillas de Apego website, its Instagram, and its brochure. By 2023, we had a few questions we still wanted to explore, such as how can we reach children directly? How can we promote these interactions with the families even after the program has ended? And how can we strengthen caregivers' knowledge on children's emotions? And we paired up with Sesame Workshop and created this integration that added a crucial layer to the program's work, which was adding this content that would reach children directly and help them identify their emotions. So what we did was integrate 23 social emotional learning videos and 3 visual aids from the Watch, Play, Learn line into the Semillas de Apego's curriculum. We did this from week 7 onwards, which is when the program focuses on children's needs and emotions, and caregivers in Jamundí and Tumaco, which is where we piloted this integration, receive between 3 and 7 videos or visual aids each week. Caregivers were then encouraged to view the videos alongside their children at least once a week. And this is a sneak peek of all of the information on how we devised this integration on the Resource Hub. There's more information regarding the integration. We use 2 different delivery mechanisms. First, WhatsApp announcement groups and Facebook private groups. Here, or to this day, we're actually using a WhatsApp chatbot, but you can go on the Resource Hub and look at both the chatbot and how we posted the videos on the Facebook private groups. Regarding the implementation results, we see that the attendance remained high throughout the program's evolution, and we also see that 84% of caregivers reported watching the videos during the intervention, even though the recommendation was to watch it once a week alongside their children. Many caregivers report to have watched the videos throughout the week many times. And more information on the challenges and the barriers of the implementation can also be found on the Resource Hub if you check out the case study. Finally, at the same time we made the pilot integration, we also carried out a mixed methods evaluation where we wanted to measure the added impact of the integration and understand the mechanisms behind whatever impact we could find. We had a treatment group that attended the Semillas de Apego sessions and also received the WPL content, and we had a control group that only attended the Semillas de Apego sessions. 311 caregivers of children ages 3 to 5 participated in the mixed methods evaluation for the quantitative part. We conducted an RCT where we surveyed these participants at 3 points in time, before the integration and twice after the integration had ended. For the qualitative part, we held focus groups with participants and individual interviews with the technical team. This was done at the first follow-up, which is immediately after the intervention ended. And we used a thematic and network analysis approach to understand and analyze the data. Regarding the quantitative results, we see that the RCT had significant impact on 2 dimensions: caregiver-child relationships and child socio-emotional development. And to understand this impact, we can look at the qualitative results, which were mainly four. First, we see that caregivers report an increased emotional recognition and labeling for themselves, but also coming from the children. And this first result actually paved the way for the other 3. Caregivers report enhanced co-regulation process because they were able to identify and manage their own emotions. This opened up space to actively participate in the co-regulation process with the children. We also see that children actually improve their own emotional regulation because they were able to connect their emotions with the characters' emotions, remember the coping mechanisms they had seen in the videos, and actually manage their own emotions. And finally, we have a very interesting result that children become emotional mediators. So not only are they able to recognize their own emotions, manage their own emotions, but they are aware of the emotions of the people surrounding them. They recognize the emotions of others and invite them to breathe, to calm down, and actually guide them through breathing exercises. And finally, to wrap up, I just want to highlight that there's a positive response and a strong take-up regarding the integration. This is coming from both caregivers and from children. The caregivers report that the WPL content actually reinforces the lessons learned in the program sessions, and we see this added.
I think, Mariana, you might be frozen.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll say thank you to Mariana and Leslie for your presentation. Definitely will put the Semillas de Apego program webpage in the chat. This one also used really innovative ways to integrate media content that caregivers viewed at home, and then also in-person sessions. So before we get to the play-based learning panel, I did also want to just recognize a few of the comments in the chat that are recognizing the current emergency for young children in Gaza and Lebanon and Palestine. I am going to put, so Leila, I saw you come on. If you would like to put anything in the chat, please feel free. I'm also going to put my colleague Caitlin McNary's email in the chat. I'll ask that people email her directly. We can set up a session to like go through all of the materials, both multimedia, print, that are available so that other agencies can use what's relevant from our resources to support children in light of the current emergency. So I'll put a few of those things in the chat as well. Thank you for raising those. So because we worked in so many locations and developed so many different types of ECD programs, you heard about parenting and family programs, you heard about emergency response programs, you heard about something that's more akin to like an early childhood program from Bangladesh, from Colombia, from Lebanon, and across the Middle East. Part of what the Resource Hub does is synthesize and summarize our work across contexts under a common technical theme. And one of these themes is play-based learning. The QR code there will take you directly to the Master Resource Hub page, and we'll link it again in the chat. But we'll go ahead and we'll go to the next slide, and we'll start off by hearing from Maram Shaheen at IRC. And IRC develops several kinds of resources to ensure that children of all abilities were able to participate in meaningful and iterative play-based activities. So Maram, off to you.
Thank you, Anjali, and thank you, everyone. My name is Mariam Shaheen. I'm the ECD coordinator for Syria Content Program. I'm based in Amman, Jordan. I'm happy to meet all of you today. So today I'll give you a quick overview of the disability inclusion resources that we have in the Resource Hub, and that the ones that we have developed through the ECD programming and Ahlan Simsim program through IRC and Sesame Workshop. But one thing to note first is that inclusion of children, all children, is a core element of the program. Because of the context that we work in, because of the ongoing conflict and the deterioration in the social and economic situation and the protracted crisis in general, there is a continuous change in the context, and it is our obligation and we are accountable to provide early childhood services that include all children, regardless of their age, gender, ethnicity, religion, or disability. For this, through Ahlan Simsim, okay, just a second, can you go to the next slide? Don't know why I cannot do it myself. Okay, thank you. So for this, we have been prioritizing developing content that is inclusive, meaning it addresses the needs of children with disabilities. It does represent the children with disabilities needs, and works to provide them with play and learning opportunities similar to other children. And to do this, we need to work on capacities of the service providers across the different sectors. So we have ACD service providers across health, protection, and other sectors. We were working and developing a content that trains them and also enhances their capacities to be able to work with the children with disabilities and do activities adaptations. So they are actively participating in the activities that are delivered for the children, whether they are at the center or at schools or within the community. And also, we're working through a mixed approach of direct services, in-person contact with the child, in addition to providing huge resources, mass media resources that support the child and the caregiver, focusing on awareness and promoting the rights of children with disabilities. We have for the mass media resources, we have storybooks, we have posters, and we have video clips that can be used in the sessions with the children and during the activities that enhance the learning experience the child obtains through the play activities. Next. What is unique about the approach is that it's a human-centered approach, and we're focusing on a child as a whole. It's a holistic approach. And we believe that one size does not fit all. Every child is unique, and we need to appreciate and recognize the differences between those children and try to respond and provide inclusive learning experiences for all children, regardless of the different abilities that they have. And we do work with the local community members in order to ensure that in terms of customs, in terms of special occasions, we are taking this into high consideration so that the content is contextualized, and the content in general that we provide for the children and the caregivers is always flexible and can be easily adapted. As mentioned, this is a very sensitive area in the MENA region. We have continuous changing in the context, and so we should be ready with adaptable programming that can be altered to meet the different needs of the different groups we work with, and also most importantly, to ensure sustainability of the programming. It has to be integrated within the other sectors to sustain the services and also have more access to more vulnerable children and their caregivers. And we're focusing on the capacity sharing and capacity strengthening. We work through our local partners and local authorities to enhance their knowledge about ACD and also address their needs. Next, please. So in the resource hub, and these are some of the resources that we have. We have storybooks. For example, one of those stories is what's in the books. This story gets told to the children, and it promotes for the inclusion of children with visual disabilities. We have songs, we have video clips that show the different types of activities that you can play while engaging with a child who has disability. And next, please. So taking you to the resource hub, and if you go to the Let's Play Together, you will find posters and booklets. We have 7 posters, and in each poster, in a very simple language that can be easily adapted to the community, we address one certain type of disability, and we call it, in fact, we call it a difficulty considering the age group that we have. So you'll find a poster and a booklet, they are related to each other. One for visual difficulties and another one for hearing, and then for gross motor, fine motor difficulties, and also intellectual difficulties, and then language and communication. Within each booklet, if you open the booklet, it's written with the voice of a child. So the child is talking to you here. It starts with giving you an introductory message that I want to play. You can include me by doing this and this type of changes or adaptations to the daily activities. Make sure you address my needs. And then since this can be used by the service providers or the caregivers who have children with disabilities, then it starts by talking about how can you recognize if I have a disability, and again written by the voice of the child in a very simple terms. And we stress on the fact that we do not do diagnosis. It's all for the caregivers and the ECD facilitators, service providers, to recognize the main signs and symptoms, and then they can refer to a specialist for diagnosis. And then the booklet takes you through what can you adapt in the learning environment at home, giving you simple instructions. For example, if I have a hearing disability, then you can, or a difficulty, then you can and make a specific sign so that I can attend to you and listen to you more carefully. And make sure when you talk to me, I can see your face, do some gestures similar to what I'm doing right now, so that I can know that you're talking to me. And then we talk about the hearing aids. In the other booklets, we talk about mobility aids, visual aids, whatever. But we need to enhance the awareness to the aids used by the children with disabilities, so that the facilitators or the caregivers can support the child through taking care of the hearing aid, for example. And then the booklet ends with another key message that we want to spread to the community. For example, when you include me, it gives me more opportunities to learn, and that's helpful for me and also for the other children. That's it from my side. You can use the QR code to log in and find all these resources. I'm hoping I'm good on time, and Julie.
Thank you so much, Maram. And I think I just want to elevate the work that IRC and Sesame put in to create a lot of content that is from the perspective of the child, so that both caregivers and facilitators can get more comfortable working and including children with disabilities. So next we'll pass it on to our colleagues Saiful Azam and Rashid from IRC Bangladesh to talk a little bit more about how they integrated play into a digital space. So Rashid and Saiful, off to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Great. So I'm turning off my camera due to the network issue. So, hello everyone. This is Saiful Azam, Senior Manager from IRC Bangladesh. I'm working in the Cox's Bazar region. So, basically, I will share one point from Zindagi Garon model, that is the supporting to the parents on play activities with their children at home through the IVR model. So, IRC Bangladesh basically developed and selected the cultural appropriate and child age appropriate contents, and those contents were delivered to the caregivers in weekly basis. Some of the contents sent to the caregivers on by weekly basis. So we have developed all of the contents in the recorded version and also the text version. If you can see that all of the contents that's delivered through using the IVR or interactive voice response to the caregiver, so that they can follow the instruction whatever we provided through the audio call and SMS. So if you see the picture, one of the picture in the right side, so this is actually in Bangla, where we provided SMS in terms of how the parents can play with the children with the household chores. So something like these messages or contents we prepared and delivering through the IVR platform. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So here you can see that there are two pictures. The first one is the mirror game. So during the content delivery through the IVR platform, we suggested to the parents to play how to play with the mirror as a mirror game. So parents were practicing after listening from the IVR calls, then they are practicing with the children. And the second picture is as a sample of the SMS, which is we provided to the parents on a weekly basis. So I will hand it over to Rashid Bhai for the next topic. Thank you.
So I guess there is a slide missing here. So no worries. Actually I was going to talk about one of our resources that is low cost and no cost material development guidelines. So as Saiful Bhai was saying that we are providing play instructions through the IVR messaging, and in the refugee context it is very difficult sometimes for the parents and caregivers to purchase toys and play materials from the local shops. It sometimes it's costly for them. So we tried to figure out how we can support the parents and caregivers on that. So we developed low cost, no cost material guideline through our ECD facilitators. So we provide hands-on support to our parents and caregivers on the how they can develop play materials, toys in the household level using the locally available materials. For example, the scrap clothes, bottles, needles, something like that, as small stones, so something like that. So we developed some materials and toys and detailed those instructions in the guidebook so that the parents gets the IVR instruction as well as the hands-on experience that how the locally available materials can also be used as a play material for their child development aspects. So we as IRC we tried not only provide resource but also provide wanted to make some sustainable and locally rooted intervention throughout our program intervention. So all the resources that Saiful Bhai was saying, the IVR contents and the play materials, everything you will find in our web page in the Jindagi Garan part, and help yourself to look into that. Anjali, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rashid and Saiful, and apologies for the slide missing. Next, I'll hand it over to Sarwat Sarwar to talk a little bit about BRAC's experience in using play to preserve culture. And there are a few questions in the chat for our colleagues from Maram and also for Saiful and Rashid, if you want to take a look. Sarwat, off to you.
Thank you so much. This is Sarwat. I am from BRAC, and I'm going to discuss about how play preserves culture and what BRAC's experience was when working in the Rohingya response, working for the Rohingya response in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. So as you can see from the pictures, it's a very colorful scenario that we have here. There are lots of colors, there are lots of elements of culture and cultural practices here. And this is why we decided to share more pictures and photographs, because here we believe that actually that as my colleague Junaid has also mentioned in the previous program study, that in the humanitarian play labs, cultural contextualization and retention of best traditional practices, this is what we believe, that it is a very important concept and one which the project places great emphasis on. Because cultural identity is a very important component of an individual's as well as a community's collective well-being. And children manifest this from a very early age through various familiar cultural practices, through art, through storytelling, through rhymes, through food and attire and behavior and rules. So play obviously is one of the most important facets of a child's cultural identity, and children learn that from a very early age. But in displaced communities, like the Rohingya communities that we work for, we know that we have seen that it is very easy for people to lose the essence of who they are and where they belong in an unfamiliar place, because the Rohingya community, the people, they come from a completely different place with different identities, with different habits from their neighboring countries, country people of Bangladesh. So when they came to this new and unfamiliar place, it is very easy for children to have a very shaky identity at that point, and that shaky identity can lead to loss of resilience for them, and also hamper their journey towards development and also healing, because children who come, who have crossed the border from Myanmar to Bangladesh, they have witnessed and have had to deal with a lot of traumatic events. So it is very important that the practice of incorporating cultural elements be weaved into the model. For the Rohingya children and community, this familiarity and closeness fosters resilience, empathy, learning, and healing, all the while cocooned within a safe, familiar setting in an unfamiliar place. Ownership and community-based guidance is at the heart of the model. We merely follow and implement whatever decisions and discussions and ideas that the community members share with us. So these colorful, as you can see, these colorful elements, this is the at the background, the maroon cloth pattern that we have. This is the shamiana. The shamiana is locally, is a uniquely Rohingya design. They use this pattern and they use this cloth to decorate their homes. So through a lot of discussions and conversations and communications, we actually identified that this fosters a sense of homeliness for them. And we also decided that, we want that feeling for them. We want them to feel at home. We want them to feel that their identity is safe, that they are safe. So we actually, incorporated that into our curriculum, into our space as well. And as you can see, we also, in the age of climate adaptation and climate change, we try to foster green play lab initiatives so that children grow up with a sense of understanding and awareness of their environment, of their culture, that they have empathy for greenery, for other animals and other creatures. And so when we actually work with communities, we work with communities together. They are the ones who make the decisions. They are the ones who guide us through all of it. And we merely follow and implement it. We don't try to impose any of our ideas on them. From space design to curriculum activities to green play initiatives, community members play an active role in the design. And this interweaving of ECD practices and psychosocial elements and best cultural practices, and of course, a play-based pedagogy has led to some very interesting and positive findings, as my colleague has shared in the researches and the discussions previously. And this is why we have seen that it also opens up a lot of avenues to work with implementers and national agencies and organizations as well. So we also, based on our work in the humanitarian camps, we've actually also started to provide technical support in regards to the review and development of the 2-year pre-primary curriculum through the government of Bangladesh, thus creating opportunities for scaling, for play-based learning and mental health support through government systems, so on a larger scale as well. Ultimately, no matter where a child or community is residing, or where they come from, everyone deserves the right to human dignity. And this is one of the defining aspects of the model. Through ownership, amplification of the voices of the afflicted, and integration and preservation of familiar traditional practices, we hope that despite their circumstances, children and communities living in the Rohingya humanitarian crisis camps have avenues of expression and healing where their voices are heard and recognized and respected. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarwat. And I'll welcome next Lilith Dollard and Talat Mahmood to talk a little bit more about a ECD home kit program that also supported Rohingya people and in Cox's Bazar. So Lilith and Talat, off to you.
Thank you, Anjali. Hello, everyone. My name is Lilith Dollard, and I'm Director of Education on Play to Learn at Sesame Workshop. We're going to be sharing how we use play through a home visit program to promote healing. Before I hand it over to Talat, I just wanted to make a connection between the earlier Semillas de Apego presentation, which really underlined the power of media for supporting bonding between caregivers and children. Now, for our work in Cox's Bazar, which is this program, we created locally relevant characters named Noor and Aziz, who are Rohingya characters that really are used to affirm children's identities, experiences, and perspectives. And they help children to connect with the messages of our programs, even when they aren't watching a video, through the power of the parasocial relationships that children build with our characters. And part of what makes our media effective is the use of narrative storytelling and character modeling to translate messages in an engaging and appropriate way to young children. Additionally, our content, both media and print, model language and behaviors for the adults in children's lives to show how to support children's emotional well-being and development at home. We strive to apply this same engaging and accessible approach to all our program materials, whether storybooks, games, or facilitation guides, because we know that in humanitarian crises, caregivers are under so much stress, and we really need to share practical language and strategies that they can apply at home for their own self-care and in their interactions with their children to promote healing and emotional well-being. I mean, you can see in this beautiful photo the joy that can be shared through play between caregivers and children. And that's why this program is so powerful. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Talat to share in depth more about the Play at Home ECD Home Kit program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lilith. Hello, everyone. Good evening from my time zone in Bangladesh. My name is Talat Mahmood, and I am the Senior Director at Sesame Workshop, working in the humanitarian context in Cox's Bazar. So, as you know, we have got a good intro from Lilith, and also I can shorten my context intro because BRAC, our BRAC colleague, has already given a nice context introduction that we are hosting. Bangladesh is hosting more than 1 million Rohingya refugees in a very small small place, small sub-district of Bangladesh. And particularly home kit is for 3 to 6 years children. So about more than 100,000 children are at that age group of 3 to 6, and they're, unlike other refugee camps, many other refugee camps, here in Bangladesh, the situation is a little bit different. They're confined in one place that is with all security system in place, and internal services are there, including health and wash and other services, but the national services are not open for them, and they are not allowed to go outside of the camp. So in that situation, children has a very limited opportunity for an exposure of resources like television, like internet, and then print rich. There is no print rich even environment. So in that context, And of these 100,000 children, around 60, little more than 60% children enroll in some sort of or any sort of ECD program provided in the camps, which is like 1 hour to 90-minute contact hour. So Sesame Workshop, in consultation with the camp community and caregivers, we have developed an intervention which we call ECD Home Kit intervention that was designed in 2022 for particularly for child development at home and to promote a playful home environment as well as active engagement of parents with children and support them in healing. So with that, particularly home exposure, like some activities at the home that enables greater caregivers access and engagement. And that supports individual learning and participation with both with the children and parents. And this model caregivers child bonding through play-based activities that also is promoted. And there are so many resources we have developed. The main goal is to foster a playful home environment, increase parents-child interaction through play, as I have mentioned, and increase caregivers' understanding of learning through play. So a playful home, that is, so with this confined situation I have mentioned, a playful home is like crucially helpful for both parents and children for their healing. So the program was piloted initially after development, piloted for 6 months with 800 children, both Bangladeshi host community and also in the camps through a local partner called IPSA. And that was the first phase was also evaluated by a third-party evaluation agency. And the evaluation was also combined with an action research component so that we can learn through the implementation and then fine-tune and finally develop the program for scale up. And really it is now at the stage of scale up, and we because of the fund kind of limitation, we have scaled up with a limited number like 2,000, from 800 to 2,000 households. And one household, we distribute one household this nice red bag of material. Those we select those household who has 3 to 6 year children, but this material, this home kit is used by the siblings and parents, even the extended family members. Inside there are 17 items, including these blocks and then number cards, puzzles, and Burmese language storybooks, and then exercise books and so on, and also many play material, balls, 17 items. So the material and activities have been designed to support children's cognitive, language, social, emotional, and fine motor development, following our ECD curriculum framework of Cox's Bazar for Rohingya children. It is low cost intervention. This whole 17 item whole kit, it cost about $16 US. So $16 US distribution per household for 3, 4, 5 users. The intervention was flexible to include both children in ECD centers and children without ECD services also. I want to mention, yeah.
Oh, sorry, just you have about 15 or 20 more seconds.
Okay, I'm also at the end. So from the evaluation, we found that ECD Home Kit increased children's and caregivers' engagement to ensure better support in early childhood development at home. The caregivers actively interacted with the resources and dedicated their valuable time with their children. It also increased caregivers' confidence in engaging with their children's learning processes. Children also benefited from this home kit, including improvement of their numeracy and literacy learning skills, social emotional skills, and cognitive and psychosocial abilities. Finally, we can say the ECD home kit played a fundamental role in children's development from the household level through these engaging activities. And all the resources are there, including implementation guideline, training guideline, curriculum. So if you are interested, please reach out to us for any technical support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Talat, and we'll put the link in the chat. I'd really encourage everyone, especially to check out the storybooks. The team in Bangladesh really worked hard to capture culturally relevant stories from the children and families. So we'll actually go back, I think, 2 slides because we have one last person who's going to take the stage, Kate Schwartz, from our research partner at NYU Global TIES. And even though we've focused heavily on practitioner resources, we wanted to give Kate the chance to explain a little bit about how the ways that we researched play really improved the quality and relevance of our programs, and we were so grateful to be able to have a research partner in this project as well. So Kate, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Anjali. So there are a lot of ways research can be a critical part of supporting play and bolstering program quality and program context fit in relation to play-based programming. So today I just wanted to highlight 4 of them, which are all on this slide. The first, which has come up a lot in this webinar already, is in helping with program design, or what's referred to as formative research. Sarwat spoke about how play itself preserves culture. Well, research can also play this role of preserving culture through helping align programming to the community needs, the community values, and the community goals. For example, when we began our father engagement work with the Rohingya population, an early goal of the research was to, in close consultation with Rohingya fathers, learn more about their context and their needs in order to tailor both the program content, that is, its focus on fathers' emotional literacy, mental health, family relationships, and knowledge of child development and play practices, and how the program was delivered, the use of kind of monthly group sessions with individual, really flexible, can flexibly schedule sessions in between them, all led by men from the community. These were all things that these focuses and this way of delivering it all came from the community themselves in order to best serve their identified needs. And interestingly, the impacts on father-reported outcomes in our final evaluation research were larger for the Rohingya participants than they were for those in the host community, where the same intensive formative research was not done. So formative research can really align programs with the context that we're implementing them. The second role research can play that I wanted to highlight is that of revealing hidden or unconscious assumptions and biases. Some researchers refer to this as the ability of research to make the invisible visible. So a key example of this from our work was that a lot of our language on the research team at the beginning of this work was about caregiver-child dyads. That is, the focus in talking about play and play-based programming was on the interactions between a child's primary caregiver and the child. And through the research, we quickly realized that this was an inaccurate and honestly very Western assumption, and that a more accurate lens was that of the family, the extended family, or even the neighborhood, with many individuals from older siblings to aunts, uncles, grandparents, neighbors, all playing really key roles in delivering the program content and the play-based activities to the young children in our studies. And this realization both changed the way we have since talked about the work we've already done and our lens and subsequent intervention development that's currently taking place with our longitudinal study of Rohingya families in Bangladesh. Similarly, the third role of research I wanted to highlight is researchers' role in debunking strongly held conscious beliefs that are, it turns out, not always accurate. So here, I'm not talking about making the invisible visible, but really questioning key tenets in the field. For example, when COVID hit, there was a very strongly held belief globally that you cannot use remote methods to do early childhood programming because the in-person FaceTime is so important for young children. And so remote programming is not really an option there. And that if it was an option and you wanted to leverage family members to help deliver the programming so that it was more engaging and not a child staring at the screen, you would end up really increasing inequity because it would work better in families where the family members themselves were highly educated, and it wouldn't work as well where that wasn't the case. And what we found when COVID necessitated the shift anyways, and we were given the opportunity to evaluate a remote preschool program in Lebanon, was that that wasn't the case at all, that we could very much leverage family members and community members and older siblings to deliver early childhood preschool content to children, and that it worked just as well in families where the family members themselves were highly educated as in families where caregivers told us about learning to read with their children. And again, it wasn't a caregiver child dyad, it was a whole community. So that was a very strongly held belief in early childhood education that was challenged by the research, and I think was really kind of groundbreaking. Similarly, our work with Rohingya fathers also challenged assumptions held by some that refugee men cannot support other refugee men in fathering, and we found that they very much can, and that indeed that is a really good model of programming. And finally, research can help us understand how programs work and at times why we are not seeing the impacts where we would expect to. So for example, in our evaluation of the Watch, Play, Learn videos, math and emotional skill videos in Colombia, we found impacts on emotional outcomes, but not on math outcomes. And because our research design for all of our studies included bringing the findings back to the community and holding qualitative focus groups at the end of the research, we were able to learn from caregivers and other family members in these focus groups that the math content was actually really beloved. They liked it. They were singing the songs to us unprompted. They enjoyed it. But they also told us that children were getting the same content at school. So it wasn't new content, and therefore children in our control group were also getting the content at school. In this case, we thought we were going to have a population with low preschool attendance, and actually 87% of our sample was in local in-person preschools. And this kind of links back to my first point about formative research. Math skills, it turns out, were not a key gap or a need in this population, most of whom were in preschool where they were getting math skills. And so therefore we weren't going to see the impacts there, but emotion skills were, because the preschools weren't doing that kind of work in their programming. And so we were seeing the impacts there. And so that's kind of a full circle from both how we design programs, but then also how we understand at the back end why something worked and why maybe something else didn't. I'm going to hand it back to you, Anjali.
Thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate that. So on the next slide, and we'll drop this link in the chat as well, the resource collection page allows you to explore multiple technical themes. So beyond play-based learning, which we just touched on quite heavily in this part of the panel, we have resources on community engagement and co-creation, the use of digital technology, scale and sustainability, engaging caregivers, and advocacy resources. And just to confirm, all the links that we've put in the chat are also in the deck itself. So when INEE posts the deck, everything will be there together. So now that we've seen many of the resources available to download, I wanted to end by showing you the resource hub in a little bit more detail. We do have about 10 minutes left, so I also wanted to encourage anyone who had any remaining questions to please go ahead and put them either in the chat or in the Q&A, because we want to make sure that we can answer all questions before we close. And if we can't for any reason, we'll go ahead and make sure that we can answer them afterwards or in writing. So if people would like to go ahead and navigate to the main Play to Learn resource hub, I'll actually share my screen if that's possible. Yes, great. Okay, so there are 4 ways to explore the Play to Learn resource hub. As we scroll down, you'll see there's the program catalog, which provides all of the tools and materials that you've just seen. There are 13 programs available here. And we'll click on the link because I would like to show you 2 ways that you can explore the pages themselves. So first, you'll be able to use these filters at the top. There's a filter on modality, hybrid, remote, in-person. Countries, and we kept the countries very specific. So if you're working in a specific location, you could see what we actually used from your country context. Age group, which ranges from infants, which is below 1, all the way to big kids, which is ages 7 or 8, and then sectors. And the other way that you can explore the materials is if you click on one of the tiles, this will take you to the program page. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll be able to see related tags. So for example, this is a Pashayachi intervention. It was delivered initially remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic when it began and then became hybrid. There's a tag called Media and Digital Technology, and it'll take you to all the programs or resources that we have that link to that topic. And you can either use the back button or the breadcrumbs to get back to where you need to go. So that's a little bit about the program catalog. I'll show you the resource collections next, which similarly allows you to both filter and use tags. For the resource collections for right now, we have country and sector because that's what makes sense across thematic areas. And then the last two ways to explore our work, one is cross-sector integration. So we did a cross-sector integration curation for psychosocial support, health, protection, and education, because we know that early childhood is a multi-sector effort. So if, for example, you click on one of these cross-sector pages, you'll be able to see at the bottom tiles that correspond to programs or resources that were specifically integrated or collaborating with that sector. And you'll also be able to see a resource that focuses on the strategies that we used for cross-sector programming across all of our projects or all of our programs in the consortium. The last resource we have that lets you explore the work that we did over these past 6 years is the Core Elements of Success report. And these are key factors that led to success across different contexts and types of programs under the Play to Learn project. So that's a little bit about how to explore. And let me just stop sharing and check on the Q&A to make sure that we're all there. Great. It doesn't look like there's any further questions. So I want to just make sure that no one else has any other thoughts or questions they'd like to share before we close. Great. Well, I'll invite our panelists to come on video. If your bandwidth allows, I'd like to give you a round of applause. Thank you so much for your time and effort to prepare these presentations, share the tools and resources with our colleagues in early childhood. And we wish everyone best of luck serving kids and families in the many crises that are happening around the world today. And we hope that you'll be able to download and use resources that you'll be able to take forward in the future. Please be in touch with any questions that you have, and we appreciate everyone so much this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.